Good morning. Hi, guys. Excuse me. Right out of the gate, got a cough. How we doing? It's Thursday, which means the weekend is in sight. I can smell it. Can you smell it? I smell the couch and a blanket and movies. I say that, but it probably won't end up that way. But it's a nice thought. It's a nice thought. So how we doing this Thursday morning, everybody? It is 11 a.m. here on the East Coast. And it is evening time where Miss Anita is. Good morning to your evening. Hi, Stacia. How you doing? Hi, Lauren. How are you? So good to see everybody. There's Miss Wendy. Hi, Wendy. Good morning. Good morning. You guys, there's Mary. Hi, Mary. Fran. All right, guys. So Kathleen says, yay, I made it immediately. You did. You did. Right on time. You get an A, or you get a gold star today. Get a gold star. Hi, Donna. Hi, Motorcrafts. I love it. I love getting to see all of my familiar. Oh, there's Dawn. Hi. I almost said hi, Sarah. What? Good morning. Good morning. So happy to see everybody. I love all the familiar faces. It's just such a comfort, right? It's like sometimes before I live, I get a little anxious. I don't nearly as much as I used to, but I do get a little anxious. Like if I feel like I'm not super prepared, even though I've already got a project, sometimes I feel like I rush in here and then I don't feel super prepared and like the anxiety kind of creeps in. But when I can see all of the familiar faces, it's like, oh, I remember we do this thing. We just hang out with each other and we make fun jewelry and there's no pressure. I have to just remind myself that. And it's so good to see you guys because it definitely reminds me of that. We get to spend we spend part of our week together. No pressure. It's okay. You guys know I'm goofy. Good morning. Good morning. So glad to see everybody. All right, so let's get to it. Let's start the convo, shall we? A lot of things to talk about. So the first thing I want to touch on is that, you guys, there are only 15 spots available for Destination North Pole. I love you too. I love you so much. So there's only 15 spots available for the Destination North Pole. If you are interested in grabbing your spot, there are only a handful left, and I mean that in the most literal sense ever. The Jewelry Whisperer. I'll take that. Oh, goodness. So if you still have not signed up, please come and do that. Take advantage of the free shipping offer that's happening right now because the Destination North Pole definitely qualifies for that. So yeah, you want to come and do that with us. I actually just got off the phone with Sarah. We are working on, just dotting our I's and crossing our T's with some of the projects, and I'm, working away at getting the samples so that there are photos for you guys who have signed up for Destination North Pole. Some of them will be a little bit closer to the event, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun. I cannot wait for Destination North Pole. I cannot wait for you guys to see all of the projects and the fun things that we're going to be doing, because we really are kind of like covering all of the jewelry making bases. There is literally a little bit of everything in the classes. It's going to be so much fun. So 15 spots left. If you're holding out, come on over and grab your spot. All right, let's talk weekly deals as well. So I mentioned there's free shipping here in the US for $139 carts. You don't have to have a code for that. It just automatically applies to your cart when you go to check out. So that means that you can add in one of these other weekly deals. And the other two weekly deals are 10% off of your favorite color. I love this one. I think it's really, really cool because you just pick your favorite color, and when you click to shop on your favorite color, it's going to give you a code just for that color. So the code for red is obviously going to be different than the code for green, and the green one's going to be different than the one for blue. So that's super, super cool. It makes it really personalized, and it kind of takes the guesswork out of it, right? And then last and certainly not least is the buy 3 get 1 free on the bead mixes, and the code for that is mix match. And I love this one. I love this one so much because I'm such a huge fan of the mini mixes and just mixes in general. I feel like the strands are like the how to explain it. Like, that's just like the grand, like, if we were putting on a show, the strands, Jesse James Bead strands are like the grand finale, right? I mean, it's just like you wait for those beautiful strands to come. And the bead mixes are such an amazing, like, that's the show, right? You're building up to the grand finale of the strands. I know this is the most ridiculous, like, analogy ever, but the mixes are so much fun because it's like a treasure hunt when you open them up and you get to go through all of them and see all of the little all of the elements that are there. There are always extra elements like, charms and clasps and metal elements, and then the smaller beads. It's just good stuff, right? It just all works together so beautifully because you've got your clasps, your chain reaction, you've got your mixes and your strands, and they all work together in such an amazing way. Jesse James Beads, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. So those are the weekly deals, including, don't forget that 15 only spots left of the, good morning, Wanda, of the Destination North Pole. So if you're holding out, don't miss out because all of the goods are going to ship, let's see, in about 2 weeks. So everything ships, I believe, on November 16th. So that's not far from now. All right, let's see what else. So yesterday was What's New Wednesday, and guess what happened yesterday? All Beadalon was restocked. Hooray! That was What's New Wednesday. All of the Beadalon stuff is restocked, you guys. So when you go to the Jesse James Beads website, you click on shop and then you come over just a little bit, and the first little heading is in the third row is Beadalon. You click on that and there are all the Beadalon goodies. So good, so good. So a lot of you guys know I not only do I design for Jesse James Beads, but I am a longtime Beadalon designer, and so Beadalon is pretty much the brand that I use, and the only brand that I use, as a matter of fact, when it comes to wire and bead stringing wire and findings and all of that. So all of that is ready to go for you guys. Definitely go check it out. The multicolor wire is back in stock. The leather cord is back. The tools. Let's see, what else is there? Lots and lots of tools. So we're going to talk about that today. That's what we are really going to focus on. We're going to focus on the wire. Let's see, I got to pull it up so that I don't mess this one up. So it is a pack. Hold on, let me find it. There it is. So there is a wire wrapping starter kit in gold color. And this is the German style wire. This is the wire that I use for almost everything. German style wire, a lot of you were introduced to German style wire through the projects that we do here on Jesse James Bead. Some of you never really had used the German style wire before, and I'm happy to have, helped you meet the German style wire. So we're going to focus on that because you can grab the starter kit in gold, and it includes 18 gauge, 20 gauge, 22 gauge, and the 24 gauge. And all of those wires and all of those gauges have their place in jewelry making. So I'm going to kind of break that down for you a little bit and tell you, like, for me personally, what gauge wire I use for what while we are working on our project. Okay. So, this is definitely going to be, it's a cool project. This earrings design, we've never done anything like this before. I'm not saying that this is like earth-shaking, groundbreaking stuff here. It's an earrings project that is definitely accessible to everybody. It's not super hard, but it's just a cool design that we've not ever done, and we're going to use a lot of Beadalon stuff, and we're really going to break it down. So if you've got wire questions, today is your day to ask. If you've got tool questions, today is your day to you guys can always ask me questions, but we really are going to be focusing on a lot of that today. So please, if you've got a question, don't hesitate to ask. There are no dumb questions, right? The only dumb questions are the ones that don't get asked. So don't hesitate. All right, let me gotta grab the artistic wire mandrel tool because we're actually using this today as well. And we're going to use the square on it, which we never use because somebody had mentioned the square of this, I believe earlier this week. And so I thought, well, we'll just use that in our design today. All right, so we're doing a little bit of everything. We're also incorporating the weekly deals, and so we're using the mini mix in Marscapone. Guys, this one's so pretty, so pretty. Wendy says, question, what's your question, my dear? What you got? What you got? We're gonna break this down, take a look-see at it, and use some of these beads for our project for today. Okay, you guys, this one's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's so classy, so classy. Let's get down to it. I'll keep an eye on the comments as they're rolling by, and my designated shouter, Miss Jane, is here, so if I miss a question, she's usually right on board and paying attention where I miss things. Let's see. Somebody, hold on, I'm rolling back just a second. Barbara Sanchez says, would you please touch base on Parawire? Well, here's the thing. I've not ever used Parawire, so I really can't really speak to that a whole lot. I know that it is similar to artistic wire in some ways, but I don't really know a whole lot about Parawire. All right, so I'm going to open up this bead mix, and I'm going to pour this into our little bowl here. And guys, there are a couple of beads missing from this because I've already made the mate to our earring. So just a few, not a lot, but there are definitely some beads that are not quite in here. I feel like we're missing some lights here. Hold on a second. Excuse my reach if I'm reaching across, you guys. I want to turn on some extra lighting here. I don't know that it's going to make much difference, but give it a shot. Okay, there we go. All right, so in this mix, you guys, this has all of the things that I love. I'm such a fan of gorgeous faceted shapes. Yeah, look at that one. I love that. It's so pretty. There are bead caps in here that are antique brass. There are pops of just the gold color. There are rhinestone spacers, rondelles. You can never have too many rondelles in your life, and those are the ones that we're going to be using in our project today. There are some of these, I don't even know what kind of color you would call that. So this one is kind of like that milky off-white, which is just such a beautiful wintertime color in my opinion. You've got some in the smaller ones have a little, they're not matte. These guys are matte. The smaller ones have that kind of lustery thing going on. And these little mother of pearl beads, these are so pretty. It's just dainty and beautiful, right? I love it. I love the little mixes. You've got some tassels in here. There's a little bit of everything. These guys, I fell in love with immediately. Look at that bicone. So pretty. So we're going to use these in our project as well. All right. Okay. Drops. I don't want to leave out the drops because everybody loves a good drop. All right, guys, so these are the beads that we're going to be using. This is the Marscapone mix. This is from the Market Fresh Minis. If you want to grab one, add it to your cart, mix and match those, buy 3, get 1 free. Such a good deal. So, all right, those are our beads. Let's talk about our earring project and the different kinds of wire here that we're going to be using. All right, so 18 gauge wire. Let me grab it. So 18 gauge German style wire, you guys, this is a little bit thicker of a wire. We're going to need about 6 inches of this for our project. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne, did you see your message? I'll message you later. All right, anyway, I'm going to move on. You probably know what I'm talking about. I'll send you a message here when we get done. Just don't let me forget. Okay, so I've got some 18 gauge wire here. The 18 gauge wire and 16 gauge wire are some of the thicker gauge wires of the German style wire, and they are the two that I use most often to make different sizes, or I'm sorry, not different sizes. Well, I mean, I do use different, they can be different sizes. But different components, not sizes, you guys. So gonna need about 6 inches. I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. So the 18 gauge wire and of course the 16 gauge wire, which is a little bit heavier. This is really good for making components. It's really good for making jump rings if you like to make your own jump rings. It's a really good, a really sturdy wire. It still needs some work hardening, so you're not going to be able to skip that step, but it is thick enough to create, you know, your components and like your, what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of the structure of things. And that's exactly how we're going to use it today. We're going to use it as a structure wire. So we're going to create a component, and then we're going to have a long piece of it. Let me show you. Okay. So I'll just talk about the different wires as we go. 11 is in the house. You got that right. All right, so I have the square mandrel attachment to the artistic wire mandrel tool. They just kind of pop together like so. The mandrel tool, for those of you who do not know, this one is it is super affordable. I use it for almost everything. Those of you who, like I said, are new, welcome in. You got to have one of these in your life. Comes with 4 attachments. So you've got a square, a triangle, a circle, and an oval. I use the circle the most, but I do try to mix it up and use some of the other shapes. Super easy to use, and it's lightweight. You just toss it in your bag. All right. Let's get started. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to use the 4th down from the top. So we're making kind of a small square. And honestly, we're not even making a square. We're going to make the diamond shape. Okay. So I'm going to take my 18 gauge wire and I'm laying it across the corner of one of the squares. Okay. And I'm not in the middle per se. I'm kind of off to the center a little bit. Right. The mandrel tool is brilliant in simplicity and versatility. Wanda, you are on your game today. Wanda's my Vanna White today. All right, so I'm laying it across there. I've got a longer side on one side, a little bit shorter side on the other side. That's because the longer side is going to be more part of the structure of our earring. The shorter side is really going to kind of be the actual shape and where we do the wire wrapping. So I'm going to just take my other hand and kind of guide the wires, or the wire rather, around that shape. Okay, and then I want to bring it to the other side, and you can see I've crisscrossed my wires here. So I've gone all the way around the tool. Let me lift you up a little bit more so you can get kind of a better shot of this. I just guided the wire all the way around, pushing it up against the surface of the mandrel, and then come over to the other side. The wires are crisscrossing. I've got a short one and a long one here. Okay, so I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to grab the longer wire, and I'm going to give it just the slightest little bend so that it is going straight up and down. It's coming right out of that corner and just going straight out. Okay. The shorter wire, I'm going to take it and kind of bend it out to the side just slightly. Those two movements are really, really slight movements. Hi, Trisha. I'm going to take the shorter wire, and I'm not going to take this off of the tool. I'm going to wrap around the longer wire, right? You want to wrap around about 2 times. And you can always use your pliers to kind of squeeze that wire wrap around there if you've got trouble with it. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take this off of the tool, and this is what I've got. I'm going to trim off the tail, and then I do need to kind of tidy this up a little bit, okay? Then that's the name of the game. So don't want anybody to be like, oh, that's not a, you know, a real sharp shape. That's because you got to really kind of push the wire up against the surface. And sometimes that's hard to do, particularly when you're using a thicker gauge wire like the 18 gauge wire. So what you do, once you take it off of the tool, you can see it's kind of rounded. To crispen that up a little bit, crispen, is that a word? I like to come in with my chain nose pliers, and I will just grab the wire and just give it a squeeze. And I know that seems really kind of weird, but what happens is it really helps to straighten out each side of your square or your diamond shape in our case. So I just give it a squeeze. And guys, by the way, I am using the shimmer tools. These are my very favorite set of tools. These are Beadalon tools, so they are restocked. You get the whole set over on the Jesse James Beads website, just so you know. These are my favorite because the handles are small, you know, and I really struggle with the larger pliers because I have small hands. So if you're like me and you've got smaller hands, this is a really, really good tool set. Comes with a little travel case so you can toss it in your bag. Again, another thing that I really, really love about it. All right, so you can see how just squeezing with the pliers has really kind of sharpened all of this up, right? And you can just keep doing it, right, to get that shape exactly like you want it to be. And all you got to do is just kind of bite down on the wire with your pliers. Okay. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to put this on the block. Okay. I do want to work hard in this a little bit. It's not going to take a whole lot, but I do want to work hard in it because I don't want to heat up this wire and lose that shape as we are working. So I'm going to use the steel block and my nylon hammer. Both of these also Beadalon products, guys, on the Jesse James Beads website. So notice that I've got the wire wraps off to the edge so that I can lay our diamond shaped piece here flat on the block. Don't want to lay it like this because it won't lay flat and you're really going to kind of mess up your wire wraps. So off to the side is the name of the game, and you want to do both sides. Okay. And that's just going to help kind of ensure that we don't lose that shape. And I'm also going to do some of the length here as well. You don't have to do all of it, but this is going to be the inner structure of some of our wire wrapping. Okay, so we should be good to go now. All right, so now I'm going to come in with some 24 gauge German style wire. Now, the 24 gauge is the smallest out of the little mix. It is not the smallest wire that there is, obviously. So Janelda says, what hammer are you using? I am using the Nylon hammer. Just my favorite. This is definitely my favorite for work hardening because it does not change the structure of the wire. I can keep, since I'm using round wire, I can work harden it without flattening. Let's see. Wyatt does this. Oh, y'all are having a different conversation. I was like trying to butt into your conversation there. All right, so the 24 gauge wire is one of the smallest, but not the smallest wire ever, obviously. But this is a really thin gauge wire that I use most often for wire wrapping onto components, just because it is nice and thin. It's a little bit softer. It's easy to work with. You don't fight with this nearly as much. And I'm going to cut myself. You really need about 16 inches of this. You don't need a ton of this. I do find that when you can cut it, you know, to manageable lengths, it's a little bit easier to control if you've never used the thinner gauged wires or you're not used to using them. Okay, so what I want to do now is right here where our wire wraps are right in here with our 18 gauge wire, I want to take my 24 gauge wire, kind of lay it across underneath those, and I'm actually going to wire wrap over the top of those wraps with my 24 gauge wire just to kind of anchor it. Okay, so I just wrapped over the top of those wraps, and I've got myself a little bit of a tail here. We can, hi Janice, we can trim these or trim this off here in just a little bit. Okay, but got my wire coming out to the right, and it doesn't matter if you want to start on the right or the left. Ramona says we were talking about twisted wire and it fraying. Oh, I see. I see. Okay, now we're going to add a rondelle to this wire. Okay, so I'm going to take one of these gorgeous guys. I'm going to add that to the wire, drop it down. Okay, now we want to wire wrap this Sarah, there was a question for you, everyone trying to answer. Okay, what guys, post what the question was again for me, so I don't have to roll back. I'm lazy. I'm going to keep going until I see it. I am going to keep an eye. I'm keeping an eye on the scroll, okay? All right, so I've dropped my rondelle down, and I want to sit my rondelle so that the edge of this bead is up against the edge of the component. So I am going to have to kind of turn my 24 gauge wire just a little bit so that you can see I've got like a bend in the wire. So now my bead is sitting so that the edge of the bead is right up against that 18 gauge wire. Okay. And now I'm just going to take the 24 gauge wire and wrap around about 3 times to lock that bead in place, right? So we've got our bead sitting off to the side, right? Can you use the twisted wire to make earrings? Well, I guess it kind of depends on how you're going to use it in your earring design. You absolutely can. I wouldn't ever use it to make ear wires. But you can use it. No, definitely don't want to use that for ear wires. Definitely not. No, 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 no. No, it's a decorative wire, not for putting in your ears. All right, so we've got that bead sitting out to the side, and you can see I had to really kind of manipulate that wire. That's why the 24 gauge wire is really good for this, because it's a little bit softer, it's more flexible because it's a thinner gauge, so I can very easily, without making it hard on myself, right? That's why 24 gauge wire is so good for this. It makes things a little bit easier when you need to kind of turn and manipulate the wire in a small kind of scenario like this, okay? So there's one rondelle. We're gonna do 2 more rondelles going up our, kind of like our tree trunk here. All right, so I'm gonna pick another rondelle out of our mix. I'm gonna go with a slightly smaller rondelle. We're gonna do kind of graduated sizes on our earring here. So dropped down another, actually that's the same size, isn't it? That's okay. The next one will be a smaller one. All right, so I've dropped down another rondelle, and of course when you drop it down, it's facing the wrong direction. So again, we kind of have to manipulate that wire. So I just kind of twist the bead, and that's going to help to really twist that wire in the direction that you want. And then of course you want to go ahead and bend the wire that's coming out of the other side of the bead. Okay, put that bead right in its spot, and then wrap around about 3 times and lock that bead in place. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. Okay, now we're going to do one more, and this time we are going to use a smaller rondelle. So same thing, dropping the rondelle down. Okay, when you drop it down, it's facing the wrong direction. So again, just kind of want to twist the bead in your fingers, guide the wire where you want it to go, and then bend the wire over the top of the bead to really kind of lock it in place. Okay, and then we are going to wrap around that trunk section about 3 times. Okay, now I want my wire to end over here on the other side, because now we're going to go right back down. So we started from the bottom and worked our way up. Now we're going to turn and we're going to go from the top to the bottom, and we're just going to repeat this process, but we're going to start with the smaller bead. Okay, so I'm going to pick up the smaller rondelle. Whoops. Okay. And I've just turned this over in my hand, okay? It's it's just easier for me to work on the right side. All right, so now again, you want to turn that bead and make it face the way you want so that it's sitting right up against the wire the way you want. Go ahead and bend the wire. Whoops. Okay. Now when I wrap around, I'm actually going to wrap around on top of the wire wraps that are already there. Okay, so we're really just kind of bulking up those wire wraps, and you're not going to notice it a whole lot. Now, this bead is kind of sitting kind of funny, the wire. So I'm going to just come in and kind of clean up the wire with my pliers a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to add the next rondelle, and all you're doing, guys, is just wrapping over the wraps that are already there. So if you feel like, well, there's no space in between there, there is. The space is just those wraps. So just wrap over the top of the ones that already exist. So again, dropping the rondelle down and then just kind of using my fingers to kind of coax it into the spot where I want it, and then wrapping over the wraps that are already there. Okay, and now we're going to do one more. Okay, dropping down the last bead. I'm going to use my fingers to coax it into the spot where I want it. Okay, and then wrapping over the wraps, and we're also kind of wrapping over the wraps here at the bottom as well, the big kind of chunky ones. Okay, and voila, we have this really cool, let me clean it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to trim off all the excess wire, and that's going to give you kind of an idea of what this looks like. So we used the mandrel tool to give it a diamond shape here at the bottom, right? But you've got 4 options with the artistic wire mandrel tool. So if you don't like the diamond shape, you could use the circle, you could use the oval, you could use the triangle, right? You could do whatever you wanted to for your bottom shape here. You could even just do a smaller loop if you wanted to, right? And just hang some things from it. Also, we have recently done some nesting. Remember where we took a bead, we laid it up against a surface and wrapped it on, and then wrapped around to create a nest? You could actually nest around every single one of these beads if you wanted to too. That's just gonna kind of bring even more wire wrapping into this, you know, if you want, but totally up to you. Also, you can make a pendant out of this. It doesn't have to be earrings. So what I'm going to do at the top before we move on, because we are going to do one more thing down here at the bottom, but I want to make a loop here. I've got plenty of wire. I could do a wrapped loop if I wanted to, but honestly, I'm just going to do a simple loop. So I'm just going to bend the wire to one side. Okay, and I'm going to come in with my cutter tool and trim off. I'm going to leave myself a little more than 1/4 of an inch because this is a little thicker gauged wire. Okay, so I'm just going to trim that off with my cutter tool, which by the way is a Beadalon product. Guys, I get asked quite frequently about cutter tools. This is my absolutely favorite. This is my good grief, my grammar is bad today. This is my absolute favorite cutter tool. This is an Italian cutter from Beadalon, and it is a little bit pricey, you guys, but I got to tell you, it's worth every penny because it stays sharp for so long. And if you take care of this, the blades will last you forever. And what do I mean by taking care of it? I mean, don't cut stainless steel with this. Don't cut your bead stringing wire with this. Don't cut leather with this. Don't cut anything other than artistic wire and German style wires and aluminum craft wires with this. Particularly the stainless steel and the memory wire will crack your blades immediately. So if you take care of this, it will last you forever. So in my opinion, worth absolutely every penny. This is my go-to cutter tool. It's a flush cutter, meaning that it will cut flush. So see how this wire is kind of cut at, see that point? So when you use your flush cutter to cut your wire, this flush side, that's the side you want the flush cut to be on. Does that make sense? So if I place my wire into the tool, the side that's over here that kind of comes to a point, you're going to have a point on that. Here, I'll show you. The flush side is going to cut flush, and the non-flush side, so the non-flush side is going to give you that point. But the flush side is going to make it just flat as possible. See how flat that is? So now when you go to make a loop, it's going to lay really nice and flat. So the flush cutters, I can't sing enough praise for the flush cutters. It's my go-to cutter tool. You very rarely see me with anything else in my hands. All right, let's see. Rolling back here. Is there a cutter for memory wire that is skinnier to cut the wire flush? So I'm honestly not sure about, do the flush cutters for the memory wire cut the memory wire shears, I don't know if they cut flush or not. I think that they do. But as far as like a skinny tool, they're kind of a medium-sized tool. I've got one, I just can't reach it, or I would grab it for you. All right, so back to this here. I think, Joan, can you tell us if you're still here? Joan knows about the flush cutting stuff. Joan, do the memory wire shears cut a flush cut, or is it an angled cut? All right, so I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to grab that wire with my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to roll back to create a simple loop here at the top. Again, you can do a wrapped loop if you want to. Just keep in mind that this is an 18 gauge wire, so a wrapped loop is just a little bit bulkier. Jane says flush, so there you go. Can the cutters be sharpened? They cannot. As far as I know, there's no way to sharpen them, but you don't need to. If you take really, really good care of them, there's no reason why you should ever need to sharpen them. All right, so we've got the kind of base design for our earring here, or a pendant, depending on what it is that you want to do with yours, right? And either side's going to work. For the front, there's really no, I don't think that there's a major difference. And let's see here, guys. Your tools on your shelf are sitting on what? I'll talk about that when we get turned back around. I'll show you what they're sitting on. I do get that question a lot, so I'll answer it for you. Okay, so here at the bottom of our earring, I definitely want to dangle. You guys know I like extra movement, and this is going to give us an opportunity to use some more of our fancy tools and do something fun. So I'm going to use this bicone, this really large bicone, to kind of keep that, see how it's just that perfect diamond shape. So I want to hang that from the bottom here just because I think that it's going to look really cool. So we're going to use a 22 gauge wire for this. Yes, what was the question? Let's see. Hold on, guys. I'm rolling back here a little bit. You can make the ear hook all one piece too. Yeah, Rita, you absolutely can. Wendy, what was the question? I'm sorry, I missed it. All right, so I'm going to take some 22 gauge wire to do my wire wrapping. Now, for those of you who are not new and have been around for a while, you guys know that 22 gauge wire is my go-to wire for just about everything. A lot of people feel differently and use the 20 gauge wire for everything, and that's okay. I totally get it. I used to be a 20 gauge person until I picked up the 22 and started using it for everything. So a lot of people are an either or. The 20 gauge is just a tiny bit thick, thicker in diameter. Obviously, it's a thicker gauge, but can be used in pretty much the same way. So I'm going to do the wire wrapping. We're going to do a knotted head pin for this guy with the 22 gauge wire, and then we're going to make an ear wire, and I use the 20 gauge wire for it. So we're kind of using all of the gauges here. Wendy's question is there a way to have a loop inside also? Yes, there is. It's a little bit more of a process here. So if I were going to do a loop here in the center, I would probably do it with the 18 gauge, that we created the structure out of, and I would need a longer section of the 18 gauge wire here where we wire wrapped. I only had like about 1.5 inches of that. If I wanted to make a loop inside this diamond shape, I would probably need about 3.5 inches to use the very tip top of the round mandrel or your round nose pliers or your small bell making pliers and create that loop and then do your wire wraps here. You could do it with a 24 gauge wire as you come down here, but it will be a little bit thinner gauge and it's possible that it could get pulled out of shape. So you can play around with it. There's a lot of ways to make an extra little loop here in the middle if you wanted to hang something, but it's really just kind of trial and error and what works best for you, okay? All right, so I'm going to make a knotted head pin with the 22 gauge wire. Angela, I'm going to do the wire wrapping here with the 22, and then I'm going to do the 20 gauge to use for an ear wire. Okay. All right, so I've cut myself more than I need, always do, but you really only need about 3 inches of this to create a knotted head pin. So I'm going to take the very tip of the wire, 22 gauge wire, and the tip of my round nose pliers. And when I say the tip, that's exactly what I mean. I want it to be the very, very tip of the wire and the very, very tip of the pliers, okay? Holding that wire, I'm going to wrap the wire around the tip of the pliers once. Okay, so created the tiniest little loop. And then I'm going to go a second time directly underneath that one to make a little coil of 2 wraps around the top of the pliers, and you want to stop where you see the flush cut of the wire. So when you take it off of the tool, that's what you've got, okay? But don't take it off the tool. Put it back on there, okay? Now, before you take it off of the tool, you want to take the tail end of the wire and you want to bend it this direction. That means that the wire is actually running underneath the 2 coils that you created, okay, which might seem a little strange. It may seem like that's the wrong way to go. You should go the other way, but trust me, you want that wire to go underneath the 2 coils, okay? Now we're going to take the tail end of our wire, bend it backwards, and stick it through the 2 coils. So we make this funny little lasso shape, okay? Now we're going to need our nylon jaw pliers. I'm going to grab the nylon jaw pliers, or I'm going to grab the wire with the nylon jaw pliers so that the 2 coils are right up against the edge of that nylon. Do not do this with regular pliers. You will strip the wire and completely destroy it. You have to use the nylon jaw pliers to do this, okay? Now, the tail end of the wire is here. I'm going to grab the tail end of the wire and I'm going to pull, and that is going to create a knot at the end of our wire, which is just a cute little rosette shape. And then I'm going to take that off of the tool and we're ready to go. So I've got a knot at the end. I can just pop my bead right down on top of that and we've got ourselves a little head pin. Okay, now we're going to do a wire wrapped loop, and before I do the wrapping part, I'm actually going to wrap it directly to the little pendant here, or earring, depending on what you're going to do with it. So I'm grabbing the wire where it is exiting the bead with my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to bend the wire. Okay, so when I take the pliers away, I've got a little bit of space. Okay, I'm going to come in with the round nose pliers. That wire is running between the barrel of the pliers. I'm going to take the wire up and over the top barrel of the round nose pliers. Now I got to roll those pliers out of the way to take the wire over to the other side to close up our loop. Okay, but now before I do the wire wrapping, I'm going to take this off of the tool. I'm going to take the tail end of our wire, which is excessive. I'm going to stick it through the center of our component, and then I'm just going to kind of wiggle and snap that right into place. So we're not going to use a jump ring here, okay? And now I'm going to come in. I like to use my bent chain nose pliers to hold on to that loop. Keeps the pliers out of the way so that I still can access that little bit of space there and wire wrap. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with my cutter tool and trim off the tail, and we have wire wrapped our little dangle bead here directly to our component, like so. So you can use a jump ring here if you want to, but I don't like the extra length that the jump ring adds, so that's why I just wire wrapped mine directly to there. Okay, all right. So our earring is pretty much ready. All we need now is the ear wire to go with it. We've done these ear wires earlier this week, but I feel like it's worth talking about again because it's such a cool trick to have. on hand, right? If you ever need ear wires. Plus, these are so comfortable. They are so comfortable in the ear. I love them so, so much. This is my go-to ear wire, and I know that it's always going to match the wire that I'm using because I made it myself, okay? All right, so to do the ear wire, I use my stepped bell making pliers. Again, this is a Beadalon product, restocked. It's ready to roll right off of the Jesse James Beads webpage. Guys, this is not a necessity. I will be the first to tell you. This is not a necessity tool, but it is definitely a splurge kind of gift to yourself tool, right? Because if you've got the regular bell making pliers, you've got the small ones, you've got the large ones, you could almost do everything. But this guy, you can make 6 different size loops with this. You've got as small as the 2 millimeter all the way up to the 9 millimeter. So you can make tons of loops with this. I use this tool for so many different things other than just making loops. You make jump rings with this. You can make cool pendants with this. It's just a really fun thing to have on hand. I highly recommend it. This is in my top 5 favorite tools of all time. Okay. So I use it to make my ear wires, and to make my ear wires, I use the 20 gauge wire. I don't use the 18 gauge wire because I feel like it's a little thick and it can be uncomfortable for some people. The 22 gauge wire just seems to be a little bit too thin for this. So the 20 is really the perfect size in my opinion. Now, just so that you guys know, I don't know that a lot of people know this, but if you've ever wondered about ear wires that you can buy ahead of time, like the French fish hook looking ones, the wire that is used, the gauge of wire that is used for those pre-made ear wires is 21 gauge, which is a kind of an odd gauge of wire size to find. It's not super common. And I don't really know why it is that that's kind of the industry standard, but it is. So it's a step above the 20, or I'm sorry, a step below the 20, but not nearly as soft and flexible as the 22. Just random knowledge, just in case. But that's part of the reason why I picked the 20, because I just feel like it's much closer. All right, so as far as how to do this, I'm going to use the smallest part of the stepped bell making pliers. I'm grabbing the very tail end of my 20 gauge wire, and I'm just going to turn a loop, making that little P shape, okay? And now to create the ear wire part, I'm going to place it so that that P shape is right up against the barrels of the pliers. I'm using the largest section of the tool, okay? My wire is coming out this way. My P is facing downwards, and I'm just going to guide the wire up and over that large barrel, okay, and all the way around. So I'm going to slide it off of the tool, and this is the shape that you've got, which just kind of looks like a shepherd's hook. Can you use German style wire for ear wires? That's exactly what I'm using. Yes, 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 100 times yes. I like it way better than the artistic wire because it is tempered. Okay. And now, so that I know that I get the same size ear wire every single time, I place it in my cutter tool so that the loop is right up against the surface of the cutter tool, and then trim. Okay. Now, needs a little extra love because it doesn't look like much at the moment, right? So I'm going to come in with my chain nose pliers. I'm going to grab the very tip of that wire and give it a very, very slight bend, right? And now I'm very carefully going to take my fingers and open it up a little bit. Okay, so now it's going to fit comfortably in your ear. You got to open it up some, otherwise you can't get it on. Okay. All right, now I got to put this on the block to work harden it. All right, so I'm just going to place it on the block using my nylon hammer, and I'm going to work harden, and I'm going to do both sides. Okay, now the number one most important part of making your own ear wires is making sure that you file the end. Do not skip this part at all. Whatever you do, do not skip this part, okay? Do not give this to somebody to wear or put in your own ear until you have filed off the end of your wire. You can use the bead reamer tool with the wire rounder tip attachment to do that, or you can just use an emery board like a fingernail file, okay? But you need to do that. You need to sand off the end and get rid of all of those little tiny wire particles and sharp edges that are microscopic, because that is a surefire way to get an infected piercing. You do not want that. So I'm going to use the wire rounder tip, and I'm just going to rotate that around right on the tip of that wire. That's going to help to round that off and make it comfortable for the ear. And then of course, when you get done doing that, you do want to wipe it off too, right? Okay, get that nice and rounded before you give that to anybody or sell it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with some really grumpy customers. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to take my chain nose pliers, very carefully open that just a little bit with just like that lateral twisting motion. You don't want to pull it apart. You just want to kind of walk it open, thread it on, and then close it back. And you are done. You've got a fun pair of earrings rather. I got to add the ear wire to the mate here. And they're really cool. Just a different kind of earring design. Again, you don't have to use that diamond shape at the bottom. You do just a loop. You could do a triangle. You could do an oval. I think the oval would look really pretty. You can use any of your Market Fresh minis for this. I am a huge fan of this Marscapone mix just because it's so elegant. You know, I feel like this is just going to be such a beautiful pair to wear in the winter time. If this is too big of an earring for you, you certainly can turn this into a pendant. You can shorten it. You can make a smaller, a smaller diamond shape here. You can use less beads with the wire wrapping. So there are ways to really kind of alter this to suit whatever your needs are. And you can add even more beads down here to the bottom as dangles if you wanted to. One of the tassels from the mix would look really super cool down here on the bottom. So there's a lot of different things you can do. I did see somebody mentioned, I think it was Wanda, and I didn't mean to not say anything to you when you said it, but you said you could make a Christmas tree. And yes, you absolutely could. Some really cool green beads would look awesome. There's the avocado on everything mix would definitely be suited for making a Christmas tree if you wanted to. Be really cool. And you also can turn it the other direction, just so you know. It can go either way, right? And that would actually be kind of cool to have your mix matched earrings, right? So do your drop bead down here on this part. Actually, let's do that just for fun because I can do it so quickly. I mean, why not? Let me trim this guy off. I'm just going to barely snip so that I can give you the look without the commitment here. I'm just going to open that up very gently. Put him down here on the other side. And put the ear wire this direction. So the mix matched earrings, I see these all the time on like Pinterest, and I've never made any, but I feel like they're fun. So you can mix match if you wanted to. I mean, just something different. Just something a little bit different if you wanted to. You don't have to do something like that, but I mean, why not? Why not? Feeling a little froggy. Feeling a little different. All right, I'm going to turn you guys around, okay? And I'm going to try these on, show them to you, because it's different to see them on, right? It's way different to see the earrings actually on than it is to see them laying flat. So, all right, put these on so you can see them. So this is the direction that we made, right? And then this one is the one that we altered just slightly, right? That's so fun. I kind of like that better with them alternating like that. That's just so fun and different. It's not like over the top, like, oh, that's weird, your earrings don't match, but it's, you know, it's just kind of subtle. I kind of like that. That's fun. But I did that just super quick and easy. You can make those kinds of changes, you guys. Jewelry should be fun, you know, it should be fun, thinking outside the box. But yeah, I feel like these earrings are really elegant and pretty. You could totally wear these on a daily basis and get away with it. But if you needed something to dress up and wear out, you absolutely could. These are definitely gorgeous ones. I'm gonna scroll back because Jane's shouting at me. I love you, Jane. Love you, Jane. Mismatched earrings. Joan likes those. I do too. They're fun. All right, scrolling back. Hold on. Oh golly, where did it go? Aw, Joan says, Sarah, you're such a teacher. Thank you. You explain every step and make it so easy to understand. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being you, my friend Jane. I love you so much. But thank you, guys. I appreciate that. You guys have no idea what those kinds of comments and things mean to me. You know, I'm just like everybody else. I have down days just like everybody. You know, life is not always rainbows and sunshine, and you know, I try not to show those kinds of things to you guys. When I'm here with you guys, I can let all of that stuff go and really just focus and enjoy our time together. And when I get that kind of feedback, I appreciate it. It makes my job so much more enjoyable. I mean, not that I don't already love it, because I do. This is what I do. It's my livelihood. But it's really, you know, it's sometimes that's better than any paycheck you could get, you know, to have those kinds of comments. So I appreciate it. Yes, the tool rack. So this guy right here, guys, this is a Beadalon. It's just an acrylic stand. I'll pull it out here. It's really dusty. That's why I didn't want to pull it out. So I apologize for being a dusty hot mess. It's just an acrylic tool rack. You can grab these from Beadalon. You can also, I think you can grab them on Amazon as well. But I gotta tell you, you actually can make these yourself with what is the name of that stuff? It's not cardboard. It's something like craft board. You can make your own with craft board. I've seen the projects for them on Pinterest. They're really super easy to make and really inexpensive. I think you probably could do it with cardboard, but you'd want to cover it with something. So yeah, I love those things. I've got a couple of them. They're just really handy to have. That shape is, you know, it's perfect for sitting all your tools on. All right, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's project, and I hope that I kind of explained like the different gauges of the wires. I feel like that kind of got a little bit, you know, I didn't explain nearly as much as I wanted to because I was really focused on the project. So if you do have questions about the different gauges of the wires and different, you know, kinds of wires and why I use which wires for certain things, feel free to ask. You always can ask me questions. You can send questions directly to the Jessie James Beads Facebook Messenger page, or, you know, send your questions there if you can't get to me and Sarah passes those questions on to me. You can message me directly. Just know that messages come to me from a lot of different places and I don't see them immediately. So I'm not like trying to be rude. Messages just get left. Probably the easiest way is to post in the secret stash group and just tag me. You know, if you've got a question, that's probably the easiest way. If you've got something that needs answering. It's also a really good place to post pictures. So if you're having trouble or you're stuck with something, take a picture of it. And I'm always happy to help you guys. That's what I'm here for. Product education. That's my #1 goal. And, you know, and showing off these gorgeous beads. Hello. Epically magical. I love that. Thank you. I'm a unicorn. Officially, I'm a unicorn. Epically magical. All right, guys, that is it for me. I am out for today, but you guys, you can catch me again. You can catch me tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the Sarah Ellis Designs Facebook page. I will be doing a project there. I'm actually going to be using the 3D bracelet jig. So if you want to see that, that is also a really awesome top 5 Beadalon product for me that is available on the Jessie James Beads website. So if you want to see that one in action, come hang out tomorrow. If not, you can catch me on Monday at 7 p.m. right here for our Maker Monday Maker. I always get it wrong, but same thing, right? tomato, tomato. So catch me here on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time if you want to see another fun project using some gorgeous Jesse James beads. And I will see you guys soon. If I don't see you, till Monday, have an amazing weekend, you guys. Bye, guys.